Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into Kadir Kubitschek's The End of the Beginning.
That's right.
And we're looking at astrology not just as, daily horoscopes, but maybe as something foundational.
Something tied right into how civilization got started.
Exactly. You shared the source with us, curious about those roots, maybe some hidden knowledge, so let's just jump in.
Okay. So Kubitschek starts off right in chapter 1 with these, huge questions.
Yeah.
Like, how did civilization actually begin? What makes it tick? Are there secrets we've lost? Where do we come from?
Big stuff. He spent, nearly 30 years on this?
Apparently so, yeah. Decades of thinking behind it.
And his main idea, his premise, is that astrology isn't just fluff. It's a logical system.
Deeply tied to seasonal cycles. That's the key.
Right, like Aries kicking off around the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, new beginnings. That makes sense.
And then it flows,
Yeah.
Taurus for growth, Gemini for that vibrant energy, Cancer for nurturing,
Leo for maturity, Virgo for the harvest time.
Libra finding balance, Scorpio transformation. All the way through the cycle to Pisces, getting ready for the new start again.
But here's where it gets interesting, the geography thing.
Ah, yes, the geographical bias. Kubitschek really flags this.
Because those seasonal connections, they work perfectly for the northern hemisphere. March 21st, spring starts there. It fits Aries.
But flip it around, it's autumn in the southern hemisphere then.
Yet the Aries symbolism is used everywhere, isn't it?
Globally, yeah. Which leads him to ask this, critical question. If astrology is meant to be universal, why this northern slant?
It really does suggest it was, designed up north, based on that specific climate.
And that fits, right? I mean, design is always influenced by the environment.
Sure. Culture, tech, what's physically around you, it all shapes how you create something.
So if astrology is a design, as he puts it, then understanding that context helps trace its origins.
Okay, so how does he trace it? Where does he look?
He digs into the archetypes themselves. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, all 12.
As clues to the when.
Exactly. Clues to the historical period when the system might have been put together.
So he looks at what they represent, like Virgo and agriculture.
Aries, Taurus, Capricorn tied to raising animals.
Pisces and Cancer with fishing. Libra, Sagittarius, Aquarius, suggesting basic tools, maybe.
Yeah, and Libra specifically with scales, suggesting trade or measurement. Sagittarius and Leo may be linked to hunting.
And Gemini.
He suggests Gemini might represent the sort of typical human archetype of that specific time.
Okay, so all these activities point to a certain kind of society.
Right. A time when farming, animal husbandry, fishing, basic crafts, hunting, trade, these are the main things.
Which sounds a lot like
Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
It really echoes those early civilizations, like the Sumerians, starting way back maybe 3000 BCE.
because they were heavily into agriculture, and famously, they watched the stars.
Intensely. So the Sumerians, roughly 4000 to 2000 BCE, they had irrigation, early writing, cuneiform.
Temple-based society, those ziggurats.
And their whole mythology, gods acting like humans, cosmic order. It feels connected, doesn't it?
It does. And critically, they knew those 7 key celestial bodies.
The ones classical astrology uses. Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. They didn't just see them, they deified them.
So he tries to pin down the time frame even more.
Yeah, he brings in another interesting point, Jewish tradition dating creation to 3761 BCE.
Okay.
And he argues the kind of society described around that era, farming, animals, fishing, simple tech, it mirrors those astrological archetypes quite closely.
So let's connect the dots. Agriculture was huge in Mesopotamia by then, right? That fits Virgo.
Domesticated animals line up with Aries, Taurus, Capricorn.
Being near rivers makes sense for Pisces and Cancer, the fishing signs.
Simple tools, early trade Libra with scales, Sagittarius maybe hunting tools, Aquarius could be crafts or even irrigation tech.
What about Scorpio?
Well, Mesopotamia certainly had scorpions, and Leo could tie back to hunting too.
And Gemini just representing, the people of the time.
Exactly. It forms a pretty coherent picture of that era.
And the focus in classical astrology on just those 7 visible bodies.
That lines up perfectly with what the Sumerians knew and tracked. They didn't have telescopes, right?
Right. And they saw these bodies as gods, Utu for the sun, Nana for the moon, Inanna for Venus.
That's a crucial link. Seeing the planets not just as lights, but as divine powers. Their movements dictated calendars, influenced society.
And the meanings assigned later in astrology, do they fit Sumerian life?
Kubitschek argues they do. Mercury for trade and messages. Makes sense. Venus for fertility and love. Fits in Anna Ishtar.
Mars for conflict, Jupiter representing the ruler, Maybe justice, agriculture.
Yep. And Saturn for limits, structure, order.
Yeah.
It feels like the symbolism grew out of their daily lives and observations.
So the big picture takeaway is Mesopotamia looks like a very strong candidate for the origin point.
Given their contributions, writing, cities, farming, tech, astronomy, mythology, it seems foundational.
Okay, so that's the origin story according to Kubitschek, but does he connect it to us now?
He does. He argues that even with all our tech, these core archetypes are still surprisingly relevant.
How so?
He makes this really interesting comparison. Our smartphones.
Smartphones, how do they connect to Sumerian archetypes?
Well, think about it. Aquarius, the constant flow of information, transmission of knowledge, Sagittarius reaching out remotely, connecting across distances, Libra measurement, balance, maybe even social interaction aspects.
Huh. So those ancient symbols are still, as he puts it, actively present.
Yeah, embedded in how we live, even now.
And that leads to his final, pretty provocative thought.
Right. If Mesopotamia was the cradle back then, could it become a focal point again?
A center of a new world order.
He suggests that historical cycles, culture, economics, tech warning, they might all be converging there again, understanding that huge, 6,000-year arc.
Might help us make sense of the present and maybe even the future.
That's the idea he leaves us with.
Wow. Definitely something to think about. Thanks for exploring that with us.
Absolutely.
All right, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time.